In today's video, I'm going to discuss what I've learned about modding guitars and whether or not it's actually worth it in the end. In my hands, I have two very similar US Telecasters. This one is a 50s original Tele, which I got late last year, and this one is my 52 reissue, and as you can see, it's had a whole lot of mods. Now, I got this one about 11 years or so ago, and it's just been a fantastic guitar. Any of that relicking you can see on it's actually through use, so none of that was butchered. I actually play my guitars. So let's take a look at the 52 reissue Telecaster first. This is the old one. And as you can see, I've got a completely different set of pickups. These are Joe Biden, Danny Gatton pickups. And no, not Joe Biden, Biden. So these pickups are low output rail style ones, and they just sound fantastic. And they solved a problem I was having. Now, when I purchased this over in San Francisco, I was playing fairly clean through PV Bandit. But when I got home and I got to use my pedals and effects, I was getting a lot of squeal out of the pickups. It was uncontrollable. So changing the pickups was out of necessity, and I've never looked back. The second modification that was out of necessity was having stainless steel 6105 frets put in. Now, the only reason I did this is because Fender installed really low, small vintage frets that just weren't very good, and I wore them out. I played this guitar extensively for probably 4 or 5 years without really playing anything else, and I just wore through the frets. There was nothing I could do about it. I could either just go and have another set installed that would wear out, or I could put stainless steel frets in. This is the best modification you can make if you're going to keep a guitar a long time. There's no need to change them out if the frets are fine, but if you do find that you're wearing them out, get a set of stainless steels and you'll never go back to the old ones. Never. One of the things I can't stand about a Telecaster is the fact that they use these really crappy input jacks a lot of the time. Strangely enough though, my new guitar has been fine, but this one wasn't. After a while, it just always became loose and unreliable, so I put an electro socket input jack on here and it's been great. And this has never come loose, it's never caused me any grief, and it's one of the best cheap mods you can make to a Tele. If you always find yourself tightening that thread, sure, there might be other ways to fix it, but one of these sockets are just so much better. I'll leave some links in the description. So maybe 8 years or so ago, I got sent this plate from Rock Rabbit Guitars, and I thought, you know what, I'll give this a shot. I didn't think I would actually still have it on my guitar all of these years later. This has been fantastic. It gives you an angled jack here. Now, some people like to flip this over so the switch is sort of down this side. I like it this way. It just feels really familiar, and I love the fact that the switch is just so much easier to access without sort of having to get your finger in between here. Yeah, it's a much better system. These angled switch plates are phenomenal. They're from Rock Rabbit Guitars. The last modification I made to this instrument was also out of necessity. I had to replace both of the CTS pots. I ended up putting Emerson Pro pots for the volume and tone controls. And these have been fantastic. The stock ones were fine too, but eventually they kind of crapped their pants and it was time to replace them. So as you can see, all of these mods that I made to this were out of necessity, and I could sort of rationalize making the change with the exception of this plate, which I just tried and I ended up absolutely loving it. So what we're going to do now is hear this in the mix, and then we'll go over to my other Telecaster and I'll show you a little bit about that. Let's get into it. I hope you like disco. Let's do it. So I hope you liked that little jam track. If you did enjoy it, please give the video a thumbs up. I appreciate that. I heard a disco track while I was in the car earlier. I was like, I'm gonna record some disco. So I tried. It's probably not great, but I tried. All right, so over to my 50s original Telecaster. Now, one of the cool things about modding guitars and playing guitar long term is you find what you love about an instrument 10 years from now and why you might have made mods to one guitar and whether that's necessary moving forward if you find another instrument. This guitar was just beautiful straight out of the box, or whatever you want to call it, straight off the shelf. It did everything I hoped it would do. It handled the higher gain tones, no problem. So there's nothing that I need to mod on this instrument. The frets are slightly bigger, which is great. Look, if the frets ever wear out, I'll replace them with stainless steel frets. But as of right now, this is as good or better to play than this. And not because this isn't a nice guitar, I love it. But it's got a bigger neck and there's things about this that I really love. And the pickups were what I was looking for originally. But back then I didn't know. So in terms of how I feel about modding this, I don't want to touch it. As it is, this guitar rocks. And sometimes you don't know this until you go through the process of either playing a lot of guitars, buying a lot of guitars, or going down the rabbit hole of pickups and all that kind of thing as well. I tried a few pickups in that guitar over the years as well, but I always went back to the Joe Bardens. And in that guitar, that's the best match I could ask for. But in terms of this guitar, I think it sounds great. And I have no plans on modding this whatsoever. So what we're gonna do now is see how this one discos. Let's do it. Firstly, let me know if you could hear a difference between both of the tracks. I kept everything the same on the settings. I literally played one rhythm part on one guitar, then did it again on the other guitar and went back and forth like that. So all the settings were the same. And in the end, does it really make any difference? It makes a difference to the playability, but the tone is still pretty close because in the end, you're hearing the player, you're not hearing the mods. So let us know if you're into modding your guitar either out of necessity or out of boredom. I know I've been guilty of like, oh, I wish my guitar sounded better. I better try some new pickups. And in the end, it all comes down to the playing. If I was practicing more, the guitar's gonna sound better. But I always say mod guitars out of necessity now, more so than just out of boredom. Sure, it's fun to do that. There's nothing wrong with it either if you wanna spend your money on modding an instrument. But if you practice more And if your guitar already sounds great, another good tip is, actually before I finish that thought, is if you think your guitar doesn't sound great, give it to someone else who's a really great player and then have a listen. And see if it's in the hands or see if it's something that actually needs upgrading, because that's always a good test to make. Thanks again for watching, folks. My name's Shane. If you want to see anything about the mods or any of the gear in this video, I'll leave some links in the description below. They help support the channel at no extra cost to you, and that's how I cover my costs. Thanks again. Catch you soon. See ya.